We're here at Reader's Alley, folks. This place here in Helena, Montana has so much history. We're going to be catching up with our tour guide, and she's going to be showing us the must-check-out locations here at Reader's Alley. I'm standing here in Reader's Alley, and it is a true pleasure to be standing with Ellen. She is a local historian here in Helena, Montana. What I've been told is you are the historian that knows everything about Reader's Alley. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I know a lot, but I don't know everything. Reader's Alley really is a very, very special place because it is Helena's oldest territorial period intact neighborhood. And it was built by Louis Reader, who was a brick mason from Pennsylvania. Miners were living in these really poorly built log cabins, and it wasn't very comfortable. So he wanted to offer miners a better place to live. So he came and brought this idea of the row house with him. It's unusual architecture. You won't find it anywhere else in Montana.
Row house, real quick. What does that mean?
Row house means door and window opening onto the street. After the mining was done, that there were artists and cooks and sheep herders and seasonal workers who lived here. And later into the 20th century, by the 1950s, 40s and 50s, there were male pensioners living here. And it was a really very primitive place to live. You know, there was never any plumbing. There was a big bathhouse up here that was shared. It's really a place where you can experience the gold rush. Because at the foot of the alley is the Pioneer Cabin. That is really one of the very last cabins left. It was built in 1864 at the height of the gold rush. Next door to it is what was a brothel at one time. We're standing in front of the Stone House, which is one of the older buildings of Reader's Alley. This was for apartments. The interesting thing about this building is that by the 1920s, there was one woman who actually did live here in the front apartment with her husband. Her name was Laura Duchesne, and she was a woman who was French, and she had this wonderful accent, and she had a very special way with wild birds. Kids in the neighborhood loved to come and visit her, and they would bring her wild birds that were injured, and she knew how to heal them and let them go. And not only did she live here and collect the rents from the men who lived in the other apartments, she also raised canaries. She raised hundreds of little yellow canaries to sell.
And they probably used these in the mine?
And well, it was a little bit later for that. I think she sold them as pets, actually. And she had hundreds of cages in her little tiny apartment. And just imagine how that sounded. So let's go in.
Yeah, let's go in and check it out.
Yeah,
so her apartment would have been like this
front apartment would have been this
part
very front portion here. Yep. This little entryway was also a part of Laura Duchesne's apartment. And you can see in this historic photo, the Stone House is right there. This is where we are.
Tucked up there.
This is Reader's Alley, and this is looking towards the alley in 1885.
Wow.
That's a very, very cool photograph.
It is, it is. These women too with their dresses, God bless them, right?
Right, and look at the muddy street.
I know, that was a lot of work.
So we'll step in here, and this was also part of Laura's apartment.
So these were really small apartments then?
Very, very small apartments, yes. The other thing that's very interesting about this space is that when they converted this into a convention center, they had to install wiring under the floor. So they cut out a piece of the flooring and they discovered 2 rooms down below.
Okay, let's talk about those 2 rooms.
And so Laura's occupancy here corresponds exactly to Prohibition here in Montana. Laura was rather well known for making moonshine or selling moonshine. And people would line up all the way down to Park Avenue to buy the moonshine. Laura would bring all of her canaries out and line the alley with the cages. And actually the canaries were kind of a front for the moonshine.
Wow, Lori was like a modern day hustling businesswoman.
She was.
She was.
Exactly.
I have to ask, the top on this building?
Yes, this is the false front. There's two of them, which is so important in Gold Rush architecture.
Oh, what are we seeing right over here?
This right here is the only standing building that was occupied by the Chinese. We had a very large Chinese population. In 1870, 20% of Helena's population was Chinese. This building here started out as a one-room log cabin. By the later 1880s, this had become a brothel. This whole area here was, you know, a red light district. And so, you know, there was siding added and a false front was added. I invite you to step into the cabin here.
Yes,
this is the room that was built first, built in 1864, in the fall of 1864, at the very height of the gold rush. And this gentleman here is the builder. His name was Wilson Butts. He was a miner who came here to stake a claim. Some of the wonderful things in the room include this hat bathtub. There's a place for you to put your soap so it doesn't fall into the water.
They had a little tushki. This is for a little tushki.
That's your buns would fit right there. This is probably my favorite artifact. It's made out of a cutting board for the seat that couldn't be used for food anymore. And this is an oxbow, or an ox collar that would go around the oxen's neck. So we'll come into the breezeway here, which was a part that was added a little bit later on, maybe in the 1870s or 1880s. And then we come into the main room. This room was added in 1865 by the family. The family of Wilson Butts consisted of his brother, his brother's wife, Luana, and 3 little girls. And so the family of 5 actually lived in this room for a couple of years. They did their sleeping, and this was their fancy parlor room there.
So people slept here. They all slept in
here, and they would entertain here if they had company.
So let's talk about this fireplace that we're seeing over here.
Originally, we think that this was a fireplace and not a wood stove. As time went on and there were stores, they were able to buy a wood stove, and so this actually would have heated the room.
Just out of sheer curiosity, and it can be a total guess, how old do you think this is?
I think this probably dates to the 1870s. It's nice and fancy, and was probably used here by at least 1868 or 1869.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I noticed that when we walked in, this stood out to me. It's very unique. What is going on in this frame over here?
So when people came west, they often believed that they would never see their family members again. And so they would typically cut a lock of hair from each person. And when they had one lock from every family member, people who had died also, they would weave it onto wire and fashion it into flowers. And
I gotta get a closer look at this. Look at this. It's like true.
It's very intricate.
It's true artist work. It almost like people that knit.
Absolutely. There's actually a manual that shows you how to do this from the 1870s or so that you can find online.
So you guys have to check this out. So this is where people would put their pies. It's called a pie safe. So it would protect the pies from insects, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And talk to us about the holes that are in here.
So the holes are punched so that air can circulate, but the bugs can't get in, and mice and rats can't get in either. So that's why it's called a pie safe.
Reader's Alley truly has been one of a kind experience. Folks, if you're in Helena, Montana, this is a must to come and check out. Plus, I'd encourage you guys to go visit Ellen. I tell you what, she's a world full of information. The other thing is some of the historical artifacts here, you're not gonna see anywhere else. Until next time, I'm Julie Mack.
Jessup doesn't need to record on this. Right?
But I
Just a
am.
name, right?
But he is.
Okay.
And I'm on 9%, so.
Oh, so we are getting, this
Yeah.
will be the close.
How's your day been?
Awesome. Spectacular.